So this is the current state of my home lab. And this is an old HP office computer. It has a nearly 12-year-old i5 4590S, 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM. For most people, this wouldn't be any good for more than basic web browsing, emails and office work. However, I'm going to turn this old office machine into a remote backup server for my home lab using TrueNAS and Tailscale VPN. Let me quickly explain how Tailscale works. So Tailscale is different to a standard VPN. Instead of client devices connecting to a central VPN server, Tailscale instead creates a secure peer-to-peer network where all your devices communicate directly with each other through secure WireGuard tunnels. Now, before we install TrueNAS, we need to add a few things to the system to make it actually capable of backing up all my data. Now, as this machine only has 3 SATA ports, I'm going to be adding this HBA. It has 2 SAS ports that break out into 4 SATA connections each for a total of 8 SATA data connections. To power all the drives, I'm going to be using this SATA power splitter as the PSU only has 3 SATA power cables. Since I'm only using 2.5-inch drives which pull less power than bigger drives, this will be fine. Now, if I was actually going to spend money on this project, I wouldn't be using 6 1TB laptop hard drives. Instead, I'd probably use 2 or 3 bigger drives, so there's less points of failure and I don't have to replace the drives as often. But because I don't want to spend any money, I'm just going to use what I've got lying around. To house the drives, I'll be replacing this 5.25-inch disk drive with this drive bay that holds up to 6 2.5-inch drives. I was originally going to put all 6 drives in here, but the SATA power splitter had too small a gap between the connectors, so I had to mount one of the drives in this drive cage along with the boot SSD. Once I had all the drives mounted and cables connected, all that was left was to actually put the drives in the case. I had a bit of a nightmare with one of the power connections for one of the drives sticking out too much to fit through the 5.25-inch bay, so I had to disconnect it, move the power supply out of the way so I could reach in and reconnect it once the bay was installed. Once the drives were in, I connected them to the HBA before putting that in the PCIe slot on the motherboard. Once that's in, we can put the front and side panels on and we're ready to install TrueNAS. So now that TrueNAS is installed, we're going to set up replication through Tailscale to our remote server. So in our web browser, we've gone to the IP address that we were given. We're just going to log in. And we're brought to the dashboard. Now, I've already set up a pool, a couple of data sets, and Tailscale to check they actually works. To set this up, it's pretty simple. Just create a pool, name it something, choose our disks. I've gone with RAID Z1 so we can tolerate 1 drive failing before we lose the pool. And I've done disk size, they're all 1TB, so I just picked 1TB, width, all 6 drives, and just 1 VDEV. And I don't have a log, a hot spare, anything like that, so just straight to save and review, create pool. So for datasets, we've made a dataset on that pool, and I've made a dataset for apps, which is at the moment is just Tailscale. I've made a dataset for backing up my main TrueNAS. So this dataset is the entire pool of my main TrueNAS. And we'll be making another one for, I've got 2 TrueNASes. We're going to make a data set backing up just the apps of my media server because I don't need to back up the actual data on there because I can just get it again from my legally obtained films and TV. For apps, I've already installed and set up TrueNAS, but all we need to do after we've set up the pool for apps, discover app, search for Tailscale, install. I've already named it, installed it, so it needs a different name. Pick our time zone. Mine is Isle of Man. Authentication key we need from the Tailscale dashboard, which is easy enough. Just go into settings, personal settings, keys, generate authentication key, generate key. Obviously I'm not going to do that because I don't need to make one. And you just copy that key, paste it into here. So I've got a storage configuration. Tailscale is going to be stored on a host path in the apps dataset we've already created because this is the cleanest way to do it and manage it. If there's any problems, we can deal with them a bit more easily if it's got a dataset set up like this. Resources, it hardly uses anything, so we've just left it at the default. So now we also need to log into the system that's going to be backed up, which for me is this TrueNAS. It's my media server, which has got all my films, TV from legally obtained DVDs and whatnot. So this server runs Jellyfin for viewing the media, JLC here to request stuff, JLStats for stats, and we've got downloaders and the RStack for organising and downloading media. Tailscale so I can access it remotely, but I've also set up Cloudflare tunnels for it, so I didn't need that anymore until I started backing it up, and I still need Tailscale, so that's fine. But we're only going to back up the apps data set on here, because the media data set, I can get all my media again, that's all fine. That doesn't need backing up, and it's too much data to back up anyway. So first we need to be on this system. We go to System, Services, Enable SSH, which I've already done. We need to go to Credentials, Backup Credentials, and just create an SSH key pairs. Name, we'll call this Replication, Generate key pair, and let's generate a private key and a public key. Now we need the public key, so we're going to select all, copy, save that. Now that we've made our SSH key pair, we need to go onto the backup server. Just go to Credentials, Users. For the root user, we need to edit, we need to enable SSH access, which I've already done, and add in our public key from the key pairs we just made. So I've already got one in here for my other TrueNAS, but we'll paste in the public key next to it, that works fine. Go down to the bottom, save. So when we go back to the main server, we can go back here and create an SSH connection. The name, I'm just going to call it Replication. Set it to manual. We're going to need our Tailscale IP. From the Tailscale dashboard, just paste that in. Port 22, it's fine, it's all encrypted through Tailscale. Using the root user, private key, we're using Replication. Discover remote host key, and that's fine. So now we need to we can set up snapshots to actually be replicated. So we just need to make a snapshot task of the dataset. We just want to do the apps. If you were backing up an entire system, you do the entire dataset. We only want to back up the apps on this one. And recursive, so it backs up all the sub datasets. Just going to leave everything as default because it keeps enough of them and it takes them daily at midnight. And then replication task, source location on the system. And we'll choose our apps dataset. Destination location on a different system. Choose our SSH connection. That should do, yeah. There we are. We'll do recursive, no encryption, because Tailscale is encrypting all the traffic anyway, and this data doesn't need encryption. Task name will leave default. Next, this is a schedule. We'll just run it on a schedule, daily, same as source for snapshot lifetime. Save. We haven't got a snapshot yet, that's fine, because as soon as we run the job, it will make a snapshot. So we're going to run it now initially just to test it, and we can see up here in running jobs that it is replicating. We can see that it's going. So I'm going to leave this to run. I should get a Discord notification if it passes or fails, because I've got alerts set up in Discord for both servers. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I've just checked the replication now, and it looks like it ran successfully. So everything we did was correct.